Hi, my name is Summer Todd. I'm doing an interview with Roger Hanson. I'm from Southwest Ohio. I grew up outside of Oxford, Miami University, um, second oldest college town in Ohio, which I just found out today. And that's I'm retired from there, and we'll be discussing some of the mysterious things that have happened on that campus and some unsolved mysteries today.
All right. This is actually like your show. It's not a
Well,
interview.
okay.
So just
Sorry, never mind.
I'm your guest.
And Roger's my guest. I'm sorry because I
Yeah.
got distracted. We were having some issues, so this is my show. So yeah, I'll be leading into everything. So, but that's a little background on me right now. So
Now I'll help with trying to get Austin in the background. So like whenever uh, you need me to talk and everything, I'll be available. But like
okay,
I'd really like to have him in here too and stuff, and that's cool. So.
okay,
But with Bob Dub, do you want to say hi, Bob Dub?
yeah, that'd be good.
I think she's gone. She got. Yeah, it's an interesting day.
Okay.
So the topic today, what is it do you want to get into? Because we had the interview and we were talking about the university and stuff. Now, where do you want to start out when it comes to that university? Because I did the research that you sent me, and I think it's really interesting. So I just want to know where you want to start with it.
When I was talking to you, I think a lot of people were interested about the unsolved mystery with Ron Taman. So, I mean, if you've done some research, I've seen some stuff. There's some stuff I know about it. I watched it on Unsolved Mysteries, and of course, I worked in Miami for 20 years, so I've heard all kinds of stuff. So we can kind of lead into that. The student that disappeared there.
Tom's, yeah. Wasn't that his name? It was just,
Ron Taman was his name.
Ron Taman.
And the year, God, I know the year. He disappeared.
I actually got that.
Yeah, I should have brought that in my notes because I'm not real good with dates. But
I brought notes for you, so I like I told you, I've got everything back, or I'm backing you up here. I got
right.
it.
So,
I just have to scroll down and find it because there is a lot of good stuff on here. I mean, this is probably one of the most interesting untold stories there is out there, to be honest with you. Like, you could create an entire freaking movie off this stuff.
yeah, well, like I said, it was on Unsolved Mysteries. And what was the year? 1940?
It was in the 50s, I believe. Ronald Taman, he was a 19-year-old who went missing April 19th, 1953.
Okay, 1953. Okay, and so the story was it was spring break, and so there's no one around. There's not very many students around, of course. And I've been there at spring break, and it's desolate. And I guess he was still on campus, and he was studying in his room. And I don't know what kind of weird stuff they did back then for fun, but I guess somebody tried to play a prank on Ron Taman. So he found this fish in his bed, supposedly. And then he went and got housekeeping, and he wanted new sheets, which I always thought was kind of strange. Because first off, there's hardly anyone around, and he ended up disappearing. And I mean, if somebody played a prank on him, you think that they would want to see his reaction, but that didn't seem to be the case. So that was how it all started. I think that was the housekeeper might have been the last person to see him, from what I'm reading, from what I've read. So he has this fish in his bed. He gets the sheets, and then I think his roommate came back. Maybe the next day or early in the morning or something, and Ron Taman was gone, and nobody really ever saw him after that. And the police were called, and they started a search, and they I think they drug. It was called Acton Lake at the time. Now it's Houston Woods Lake. There was even rumors that Rowdebush Hall, it was when it was being remodeled, people said, well, I think it was being remodeled around that time. People said, well, maybe the cement was wet and somebody killed him and put his body in the cement. So when Rowdebush Hall was remodeled many years later, maybe in the 90s or something, they said they were always trying to see if there were any bones or anything. Of course, cement's pretty acidic.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be in there. There was a cistern behind Fisher Hall. They looked in. There's also a report. Probably there's a little town about 30 minutes from Oxford, 7 Mile.
Mm-hmm.
A woman said Ron Taman showed up at her door, and he was distraught and kind of looked bad, and he seemed confused and was asking where there was a bus, I think, or how to get a bus.
Yeah.
But that was, they kind of seemed to dismiss the story. I mean, it was a woman and her daughter who both said it was him, which really doesn't make any sense. I don't even know how he would have gotten there. I mean, I think his car was left on campus. So, he was never found. And there was also a weird thing. The coroner at the time said that he'd never had a request like this, but 2 weeks before Ron Taman disappeared, Ron Taman came to his office and wanted his blood type. And he said he's never had anybody ask him that, and he didn't know why. So that was always something kind of odd about that too. I don't know if he joined the CIA or something, but I think he knew he was going to disappear because of the blood type. Getting the blood. That was strange, very strange.
I kind of read into the whole thing about the CIA thing, and it all depends on how far you're willing to believe. You know what I mean when it comes to this, because one of the biggest blogs they got out there about this topic when it comes to him is when he left to go to the CIA. They said that he was associated with the MK Ultra program and stuff like that, and they were also trying to make implications to the woman who was running the campus at the time. I guess she was the one who founded the school or some stuff. That she was supposed to be associated with, I believe it was her uncle or somebody who was supposed to be a real bigwig in the government and everything. But I was...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay.
I skimmed through it to check it out, but I do want to mention that, I mean, there's a lot of strange stories coming out of all that with Tim and that whole thing. They've gone as far as to say he ran off to the CIA and that he was a part of the MK Ultra mind control experiments and stuff, and
right.
That
it just doesn't. I just don't know how a person just walks off that campus and disappears. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I would think he had to go. Somebody had to pick him up, and he went somewhere. I do know his car was left on campus. Yeah, they said his car was still there. So, yeah, it's still unsolved. And his parents, I think, his father's probably dead now, but back in maybe it was the 70s, his dad was still looking for him. And yeah, it was just very strange.
Yeah. Yeah, what it was is it was initially built as an independent college building on September the 3rd, 1856, and then Oxford Female College occupied the remoter location northeast of the developing town of Oxford, Ohio, as well as Miami University. They were talking about a Reverend or Dr. John Witherspoon Scott, and he was father-in-law of President Benjamin Harrison. And,
Oh, okay.
The founder of Fisher Hall is who they're talking about, and it's Ebenezer Lane, and
Yeah.
Ebenezer Lane and Reverend Dr. John Witherspoon Scott were the ones involved with it, and the woman who ran the place was supposed to be affiliated somehow with somebody in the government, basically. And
Oh, see, I had never heard that. Yeah.
and
I just know that there was stories on campus about the Fisher Hall being haunted. Of course, it was torn down in 1979, I believe, and it sat on campus for years, and it was deserted, and it was scary looking, and people would go in there, and around Halloween, and just in general, they'd go in there and try to scare themselves, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then with Ron Taman disappearing from that building, that's it was a big deal at the time. Yeah, and it still is today. There's it's never been solved. So
well, I even heard. Is it true that like when they tore the hall down, they even searched for his bones and remains then when they did it too? Because
oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, and this cistern I said behind there, I think they looked in that again, and like I said, that the lake, it's Houston Woods lake. They drug that lake when they were looking for him.
Mhm.
It's not a big lake, but it's big enough. Trying to find him, but nobody ever found him. So that
Yeah.
was one of the big mysteries up there, and it still is. So
The one thing that really stuck out to me when it come to him though, and it kind of goes into the other stuff that later on we can talk about, like with his disappearance. It's more of how the police dealt with it. You know what I mean? Like that right there is probably the most suspicious part about it. I mean, for me it is. They had three ideas that I guess that they said that it could have possibly been. It could have been foul play,
yeah,
and amnesia. They said that most likely he had amnesia and walked away from the incident. You know what I'm saying? Like, where do you come up with that kind of stuff? Like, okay,
well, especially since he was coherent. It sounds like when he talked to the housekeeper about the sheets, and that's another thing. What I think he wanted to use the sheets for something. I think there's something with that. Well, I have no idea what it would be. But there's something up with that.
Yeah, it just even the story that comes from the police officers is just really outlandish. And don't get me wrong, I understand it was a smaller town and everything,
Yeah.
and people. That's another thing too. Like the thing about it being, it very seldomly happens there. I mean, just from the stuff I've researched here, I've found like 4 freaking murders that happened in that town in the last 70 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good amount. I was doing some history on it the other day, and I thought, well, gee, I guess there has been quite a few. Like I remember, it hasn't been that long ago, maybe it was 2014 or something, that a girl's boyfriend killed her in level 27 apartments. They're brand new apartments. Well, they're fairly new now. Her boyfriend, and she broke up with him. I think he was from around Columbus or something, She broke up with him in the morning, came back home, and then I guess he drove all the way here, and he had a gun in his backpack, but she didn't know it, and he'd never been violent with her. But that morning when she broke up with him, he was pretty upset. So she called the Oxford police, and they came out, and she said she was kind of scared, and they came out, and they were talking to him and her, and then she said, well, you can go, it's fine, I think everything's fine now. And they were like, okay. Well, he had the backpack, and he went into the apartment with her. She had roommates, but they went into him and her went into her room, and he killed her. He shot her and shot himself in that apartment. And, you know, a lot of people were criticizing the police quite heavily about that, but the police were like, well, first off, you know, she told us he'd never been violent. She said he was scared of him, but we can't just search him for no reason. And she said we could leave, and we had no reason to think, oh, you know, that he had a gun or he was going to be violent. We just thought, hey, you know, they'd work it out and maybe he'd leave again. But so, yeah, that's been pretty recent, really.
Yeah. Now, were they associated in any way with the college, like students or anything like that?
Becca, yeah, her name was Becca. I forget her last name, but yeah, she was a student there. She worked at King Library, and yeah, she was a student there. He was not. He wasn't going to college. I don't think he was up in Columbus around his parents, but I think he lived alone. And yeah, she was a real good student, and I think that was part of the problem is she was starting to kind of grow apart from him, and he just couldn't handle it. And it was really sad because when I read the stories about it, you know, his parents loved her, and her parents loved him, and the families were pretty close, and nobody ever thought anything like that would happen between the two of them. So.
Yeah,
that's a pretty sad story. But yeah, back to the campus, there's all kinds of haunted stories about the campus, and I'm trying to think. Peabody Hall's one that a lot of people have talked about.
Yeah.
I had a student worker tell me that he was a guy, and you know, it used to be a woman's dorm, and it was Helen Peabody. I guess she was in charge of it, and now they say she doesn't like the men there, so she is particularly haunting them. You know, she's particularly mean to them. So the student said he was in his room, and I think his phone was ringing. It would keep ringing, and like just weird random times at night and wake him up. And this was like before cell phones, I think, or you know, right as we were getting into them. But he said he unplugged the phone and the phone still rang. So I think he asked to get out of that hall. And he said there was all kinds of stuff like that happening there. And then, oh, this is good. I was when you go, like, I was looking for a different job on campus. And so you just go to different departments and interview, you know, you put your name in and they interview you. So I went to Peabody Hall to interview for a job, and there was an older gentleman there and interviewed me, and he was talking, and I was getting ready. We were wrapping up the interview, and he said, oh, and by the way, I know you've heard that this place is haunted. And he said, I'll tell you the truth, it is. Every bit of that stuff you've heard is true. And I was like, this is crazy. And it was pretty spooky because he was so businesslike, you know, and he just seemed so, you know, what do you call it? Just like somebody that wouldn't make up a story like that. So, but he said it's not, he said it's just something we deal with. We kind of, you know, we deal with her. It's Helen Peabody.
Helen.
So yeah, that's was the major building on campus that was haunted, they said.
Now, I've actually found out something too. It was that do you know much about Wilson Hall?
I don't. You know, I think they just tore it down not too long ago.
Yeah, they called it the Pines.
Yeah, it was part of Fisher Hall at one time, I think, right? Yeah.
It was pretty close.
I heard it was very haunted, though. I think there was an administrative assistant. I don't know. When you work in the university, you deal with a lot of people in different departments, and I had called her about something, and she said, I don't know how we got talking about Wilson. About they were going to tear it down, and she said, "Well, it's a lovely place, and it really isn't in bad shape." She said, "The only problem is it's haunted." She said, "I worked over there; it was haunted."
That'd be a big reason for not wanting to work there. I mean, like.
Right. I don't know, but yeah. So that was kind of odd. I worked in Schreiber, and I never really had ever heard it was haunted. But then I was talking to one of the building managers, and he told me that they set up the dining area. It's called the Heritage Room. They set it up for events and stuff. So that's what a lot of our student workers would do there, or his student workers. And he said one of the students was going in there. It was early in the morning, and she was setting up the tables, and she looked over in the corner, and there was a woman standing there. And she was like, "Oh my God, how'd the person get in here?" Mm-hmm. And then she said they just disappeared. So she was always afraid to go in there by herself and set up the tables and stuff for the events.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And that kind of goes back to what you was talking about in your interview with me with your mom, where she had the same kind of experience too on campus, didn't she?
Well, yeah, and now that place it's a community center. It's still there, and it's clear across town, and I think that's why Miami University rented it out as a community center, because it was kind of maybe away from the main campus. And it's I've heard so many stories about it, and it's so weird. I tried to look up some information for you, and I couldn't find anything. I really couldn't. And so it's really strange. But yeah, when she worked there, though, it was still part of Miami University. It was a dining hall, residence hall. So, like I said, she saw this lady over in the dish line, a girl, all dressed in black. And so, it scared her half to death. And she was there by herself in the morning setting up salads. But and she said the girl just disappeared. And what was weird is the other day I was looking up stuff to send you, and I saw some of the girls, how they used to dress back in the 1900s. Yeah. Wore the black dresses and skirts and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Now, Austin said he got his audio finally, so.
Oh, are you on? Can you hear us, Austin?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, feel free to talk now. So.
I had to turn my phone off and back on.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I knew it had to do something with turning something on and off, because that's the way it always works. It always works that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always the first thing I try if I'm having technical issues.
Right.
No.
And so, Austin grew up, too, outside of Oxford, but he didn't work at Miami University, but he's heard a lot of the stories about the university. And then the Bikers Light, all the students go to see on Oxford-Milford Road. I don't know if you heard much about that, Roger, but...
You told me a little bit about it in your interview. I remember the light and everything, so...
And we've actually went out there and we've seen it. I can't figure out what it is. Like, you'll go out to this old road, and there's a curve, and you turn around, and then you can... I've seen it without flashing my lights 3 times, but you'll sit there and you won't always see it. But when you do, it's pretty scary. And it's like all of a sudden you'll see a light and you think it's a car coming up this road. Mm-hmm. But then it comes right at your car and then kind of just disappears. And I can't figure it out. So, and it's pretty national. That story is, I've seen it on some ghost, stories on TV and everything else. So it's
Yeah.
pretty national. And a lot of the students go out there at Halloween to see it, and Austin's seen it. So yeah,
Now, I've seen it many times.
it's pretty scary.
Me and you and my wife went out to see it last week, I think it was.
Yeah. So we did.
Yeah.
We did see it.
And we actually saw it.
Right. It's not as bright as I've seen it before, but that was it. And it's weird. So of course, his wife April got scared. So she was like, "Let's go." Yeah. So yeah.
It's a little creepy out there too, because
Yeah, it's kind of on
even
this
that aside.
old back road there. Yeah. So that's pretty crazy.
What kind of stories, have you heard or seen anything when it comes to the university at Austin? Like, do you have your own personal stories about anything when it comes to that at the college? At Oxford?
No, nothing really that I can think of, because I haven't spent enough time up there.
Like,
Back to the Ox College where my mother saw that the lady. I forgot about this, but my brother-in-law, of course, he liked to sit around and drink, and he'd always tell big stories. But he worked at Miami University as a maintenance man, and I think he was telling the truth about this. He said that none of the maintenance men wanted to go in that building. They'd be there like one time, and they would never want to go over there. Nobody wanted to go over there. He said if it was just a change of light bulb, he said nobody wanted to go over there. And then he said this, now I don't know if it's true. He said, I saw something, but I will never talk about it. So I don't know if he was just blowing smoke. I mean, he did seem like he was kind of scared. So that was a story I heard. Oh, and then also it was, well, right now they do plays and stuff in there, but I think I don't know if that's just when it was with the university. Do you know, Austin? I don't know. They had plays, and they did plays in there and stuff. But
Plays.
Yeah, they had plays, like for art.
Which hall was it?
Ox College.
Are you talking? I don't know about.
Community center now.
oh, okay.
I don't know about that for sure, but
it was part of the theater at one time or something. So
No, you talking about the whenever I was checking it out, it was talking about the Markham Hotel and Conference area.
No, this was like the community center now that they're renting it from the university. That was Old Ox College. I think it was there was some performing arts stuff going on there at one time. I don't know if it was a dorm for that, but I know that the performing arts students were over there. And somebody said that they would be getting ready for plays and stuff, and weird things would happen, and just things in the dressing rooms, or just strange things. So I've heard that too about that. Yeah, you're talking about Markham Hall is Fisher Hall. When they tore down Fisher Hall, they put the steeple of Fisher Hall on top of Markham, because they just kind of wanted part of the old building on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on the same site, basically. And they say Markham's haunted too, because people it's an event center, and it's beautiful, and you can have all these fancy receptions and stuff there. But my building manager, again, he said, I was over there working, and he said one of the students went downstairs and the elevator, he said the elevator just was supposed to come back down, but it went back up, and she just got scared. She just said she felt weird. She was getting some wine or something, and so that building is supposed to be haunted too. Most of the buildings on Western campus are, it seems like, up there.
You want to hear what I found out when it came to Markham Hotel?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay, you know the name of the hotel was named after somebody, right?
Yeah, I
It,
think so.
it was opened in September of 1982 on the former site of Fisher Hall,
Right.
which you
Yeah.
know. Okay, but the building was named after Joseph T. Markham, a Miami alumnus killed in a car accident in 1973.
Oh, was he? Yeah. Now I do vaguely remember that.
Now, see, that goes into what I'm saying. These are like
Hmm.
weird coincidences that just seem to be related to death that anybody could just, mark off as insignificant and everything. But it just seems odd that everything related to this freaking college has something to do with death in some way. You know what I mean?
There was a lot, and I don't know how he was killed, but we had this was weird too, and it's just creepy. I don't know that there's anything spooky about it, but there was a physical facilities director, I believe. He was in a car, and this was like I think in the 90s maybe. Um, I can't, I'm not for sure, but it wasn't a long time ago. Um, he was in a car coming to work, but he was a passenger. And there's like these riding stables you go by, and you're coming on like up the highway, and you come right into Miami University. Well, there's a lot of deer and stuff come through there because there's some woods there. And somebody was coming out of Oxford as they were coming in Oxford, and they hit the deer. It flipped up over the hood of the car and went through the windshield, and it killed this poor man that was over in physical facilities. He was a director. Everybody loved him and stuff. It might have even been like in 2000. I think I was working there then. And it was right before Thanksgiving. So there's these creepy things like that happen too, And then I think I did see that car accident. I don't know the particulars on that, but yeah, that's a little weird.
The weird part about it was it's his father who was the one who built the hotel, and then he dedicated the name in his son's, in his son's dedication, who died from a freaking car accident. And I'm like, that's just kind of weird, you know what I mean? So, I mean,
Right.
and it's like an entire list of all these strange occurrences that happened to that Timmons disappearance all the way up, And
Yeah, there's some strange things that have happened on that campus. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about a man. He's in prison now. They were building the new Farmer School of Business, and there was a man named Tom Petters. And in fact, if you look him up, you'll find him because he's in prison right now. But they were building a new school of business, and the president at the time got to know this guy named Tom Petters, and he was donating bunches of money to the university for this new school of business. And he was pretty good friends with the guy that was in charge of the school business over there. And his name was Tom Petters, and everybody loved him. Just thought he was the greatest thing. And they investigate people. Like, they'll do research. I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, I can give you some money. I'm going to give you a bunch of money." They research that. They do some background checks and stuff.
mm-hmm.
So Tom Petters was going to give all this money to the university, to the School of Business. I think he was into like sun cameras and all kinds of entrepreneurial stuff, supposedly. But anyway, they investigated him. Everything was great. So they were going to name one of the rooms after his son, because his son was going to the university at that time, and another one after his daughter. So the School of Business has got, they got these two rooms they're going to name after him. They're getting all this money from Tom Petters, and they're all happy. So they're building away and everything. So then things get really weird. Tom Petters' son went to, I think it was Italy or something, but he didn't know the language, and he was on somebody's property, and he thought it was a park, and he was with his girlfriend. And I guess the man that lived there came out and was telling them to get off of the property. And Tom Petter's son started fighting with this man. Well, the man had a knife, and he stabbed Tom Petter's son, and he bled to death, and he died.
Wow.
So, and so poor Tom Petter's son died, but they're still going to, that's another reason, well, we're going to name this room, we're going to name some stuff in this Farmer School of Business after his son. So that happened. Then, I think it was about a year later, maybe. There was some stuff going around about Tom Petter's maybe having some fraudulent activities and things like that. And he was on the cover of Forbes magazine. So he was supposed to be this brilliant business person. And then I think it was a couple weeks after he was on Forbes, he was arrested. Tom Petters was arrested at the Bellagio for, what do you call it? Stealing people's money. He was investing.
He was embezzling.
Embezzling people, yeah.
He was like
He was embezzling from those alumni.
And he was like a Bernie Madoff, and he was embezzling money from people that he grew up with in Wisconsin, I think, at their church, and I don't know that he would have ever been caught, but the economy, it was starting to kind of get weird, and people wanted their money back from, their investments, and that's how they caught him. So this guy goes to prison. The Farmer School of Business has to, they had to get the money, they had to give the money back because there wasn't any money. So it was a mess. But there's, it's weird. And then, his daughter, they didn't name anything after his daughter. And of course his son had died. So the whole thing was just kind of creepy and weird and bad.
It's like the whole thing's kind of as cursed.
That's exactly what I was thinking the whole time reading the stuff that your mom gave me to read. Okay, all I'm thinking of is I told her, I was like, you tell your daughter she needs to go to another college out of state.
Well, she did to UC. She didn't.
Yeah, she went to UC. So nothing bad wound up happening there.
That was horrible. I mean, and this is one thing after another. And then it goes back to what I was telling your mom about the police, okay? The police come up with this crazy stuff. Like, they turn around and say, well, the citizens here in freaking Oxford, they're not used to this kind of stuff. And I'm like, where do you come up with that crap at? I mean, people are dying all the freaking time here. Yeah,
I used to hang out up in Oxford. There's a lot of pretty rough corners of that town. so people
there's a lot going
people were pretty used to some pretty messed up things up there.
Yeah.
More so than you would think for it being a really small town in Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and Austin, I think this story's kind of yours. Is the girl? There was a student that was hit by a train, right? So you can tell everybody that story.
Oh yeah. There was a girl. I want to say it was around 2005. I'm not sure what year it was, but she was found mauled by a freight train ran over her. The engineer said she was just laying out on the tracks when he was coming down the line, and he sounded his horn, and obviously that didn't make her get up, and he couldn't stop, so he ran over her, and it took him a few weeks to identify her, and I guess her body was so mauled from having been ran over by the train that they couldn't figure out much, but they suspected that this bouncer at a bar uptown had murdered her and dumped her body on the railroad tracks. And a few months after she was she died, this guy walked out on the railroad tracks in the middle of the night out in front of a train, and the engineer that was driving that train said the guy was just standing out there in his headlights, and so he sounded his horn to scare him off the tracks, and that didn't do it, and the guy just kept standing there, and as his train got closer, he started waving at the engineer, and well, the engineer couldn't stop. You can't stop that much weight that quickly, so he ran over him, but that was that bouncer who was suspected of having murdered that girl.
Oh wow!
And then dumped her. Yeah, he was a bouncer at that club uptown. I don't know if he went to the university, but she was a student there.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
You notice it all rotates around women. So like that crazy. Well, I think it's kind of crazy with the MK Ultra thing that I was telling you about when I was reading through what you said about Timmons. This woman, she believes that he ran off and joined the CIA.
Yeah.
And then she, if you read closer and farther down to it, it starts saying that he was like a part of the MK Ultra program, which
that was where they tried to use LSD as like a mind control substance,
right? And
wow.
to brainwash people and like turn them into Manchurian candidates and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Well, see, your mom told me about that and gave me the references to it, so I checked it out, and that's when it started doing that, and I was like, hold on, that's just first of all, I know John, he doesn't really get into the whole conspiracy theory thing, so I was like going to be quiet about it. But then I kept reading, and I'm like, hold on, man, these women are freaking dying, you know what I mean, and they're college students at this college. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're dying in droves up there.
It's
and that's weird. And then I read that story about gosh, what's her name? I just read it today. About the woman in Candlewood.
Oh, yeah, the one that was the cold case that's going on up there, right?
Yeah.
I have her name too. It's Elizabeth Andres.
Yeah.
Andres. Or Andres.
When you mentioned it, I don't know. At that time, I think it was like, 1979 or something. My husband and I lived in Candlewood, but we were so busy. Like he was working almost a job and a half. He was playing music. I was working full time, and we were trying to get money together for a house. And the media wasn't like it was. Back then it wasn't like it is now. So I heard the story, and I heard a little bit about it, but I never really paid much attention to it, even though I lived in Candlewood. And because, he moved away, the boyfriend moved back out west, and I think she had graduated. She was getting ready to leave. But I investigated it today, and it's it's pretty terrible how the police treated her boyfriend. I don't know if you saw that, Roger.
Yeah,
if you got to look at it.
I did.
Oh my God. How they interrogated him, and finally he just said he did it. But I don't believe he did it now. I used to hear it and I think, oh yeah, it was a boyfriend. And
they probably just intimidated him until he broke.
Like they questioned him for 30 some hours, and then they had him take a lie detectors test, and the guy that was giving it kept saying, you're going to fry in an electric chair, and I don't know. But anyway, so finally he confessed, but it seems to me like she was killed there was somebody that was friends with one of the police officers, either him or the maintenance man at Candlewood. But that was a bunch of bull crap too, what the police did. And they also got rid of a lot of evidence in that case. So now they really can't go back and try to figure out who did it. Her boyfriend's still alive, I think. He's had a hard time with it. No. From what I heard.
I actually checked it out and got some names for it. there's, I don't know if you guys ever heard the story from Amber Hunt and Amanda Rossman up there. They were, they're a journalist.
Not sure.
They're journalists, but they thought the story behind that was so important they actually did their own podcast for it, a whole series on it. And what they said from their investigation was that the police did an improper investigation and it just wasn't done properly. They accused Robert Young, who was the boyfriend, of murdering him, and he did confess, but he recanted his confession afterwards.
And he passed a lie detector's test too, I think. Yeah.
No, the juries in two separate juries, both criminal and civil, found him not guilty. And even though both of those juries found him not guilty, the police refused to do an investigation.
Yeah, and didn't some evidence mysteriously just disappear? Now they'll never really know, I don't think. There was like the bloody sweater she had, and yeah, a lot of the evidence that had DNA, it just accidentally got destroyed, they said.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, with
I'm sure it was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With what Amber and Amanda said, they got absolutely no cooperation whatsoever from the police, and like their story was the same as the other murder you was talking to me about earlier, where they said, well, this was a small community, people aren't used to this kind of stuff, and blah blah blah. You know, I mean, come on, just the stuff I've read and found.
There's a lot of very hardened criminals living in Oxford, more so in some of those really rougher areas than you would think. They act like it's such a quaint college town.
Yeah.
That's how Miami tries to market it, but it's pretty rough in some spots.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the one thing that was interesting to me is, and I think his name was Statham, wasn't it? Or no, not Statham. I know the other guy too. He was a police officer at the time, and his good friend was her manager at the Red Ox, I think. Her manager said, "Well, I've been to her house. You know, she invited me over, but her friends were saying she would never do that." And that's weird, because it's like he thought, well, maybe there was some DNA evidence or a fingerprint there from him, but they never investigated it anyway. So, you know, it's like he was making up an alibi just in case.
Yeah.
But they never ever checked it out anyway, and people were saying it was because he was friends with I think his name was Pat Baird at the time. They were real good buddies, so you know, that's weird that he was good friends with a police officer. And you know, but then the maintenance man too, that was weird. He left the country. He left the city of Oxford and left the area.
Yeah, I never knew. They never said anything in any of the articles, so like I didn't know that.
Yeah, he left. What happened? Well, see, and I think it might have been him too, because she got mad that night because he left her door unlocked the night before, and she wrote this nasty letter, a note. They had a copy of the note to the manager of the apartments, and she said, you know, he needs to stay out of here, and I don't want him in here. He left my door unlocked, and until I get my stuff packed and gone, I don't want him in here. And so then this maintenance man ends up right during the trial or something. They never even questioned him, and they never ever looked for any DNA evidence from anybody else but the boyfriend. And this maintenance man just leaves the area. I thought that was
probably him that did it.
Yeah.
he saw a easy way out, and he slipped out.
Yeah.
But another weird thing about this too is, I think her murder was around. It was on break too. I think it was right after graduation. So, you know, you get these crimes up there around graduation or when it's spring break, like Taman disappeared in spring break. There's nobody around up there. It's like that right now. they're still kind of on break, and you just go up there. There's nobody around. You could probably commit a crime, and nobody would know any better. So
Yeah.
so that's something interesting about that university too. Yeah.
Oh, Bob Dub, she's quiet.
Huh?
Oh, Bob Dub's been quiet. I think she's over there just taking it all in. Like,
Yeah, I haven't heard nothing from her since the last message she sent me.
are you there, Bob Dub?
There.
She's like,
Her microphone's off.
yeah, she stepped
Is it?
away. She's like,
Yeah.
Oh, she did.
yeah,
Yeah, she
probably.
said she's going to listen in on and off. Another thing, and this is so weird that I remember it as I talked to about things. Things come up. I used to work, and it was on Western Campus in Denison Hall, in the dining halls when I first started there. And there was a man. His name was Houston Wiseman. And speaking about breaks, this is how it ties into that. He was a flirty, gross guy. He just was always like talking about the women and all that stuff. And I was pretty young.
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh, you there? You can say something. We're just
Oh, hey, Bob Dub.
hi. So anyway, this creepy man I'm working with, he was kind of creepy, and I found out I had went to school with his son, and his son liked me back then. His son was kind of, into drugs, and I didn't know his son real well, but his son would kind of follow me around some. So I talked to him one day, and I said, yeah, I kind of knew your son, and he was like, yeah, and he said he's into drugs real bad now. So his son, this guy's son, Houston's son, was like in a rehab center. And then, this is weird, and he came home, and it was over, going into Christmas break. Supposedly, he killed himself in Houston, his dad's house. He shot himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my mother knew, like, Houston's wife. That was, this boy's, I forget the boy's name, but that was her son. So, and she told my mother, she actually told my mother, she said, I think Houston killed our son, because she was getting divorced from him and stuff, and he was so mean. And she said, I swear to God, he killed him. And I got to thinking about it, and I was talking to my mother, and I said, well, it's possible, because when we worked in the dining halls and it was getting towards break, we'd just do cleaning and stuff like that, and it was so easy back then. We had the old time clocks where you just punch out and back in or whatever. It was so easy to slip out of there then. So Houston could have easily, just left there during the day and came back. So that would have been his alibi, because he wouldn't have clocked out, and nobody would have known. Because, the students were mostly gone, his student workers and everything, so nobody would have known.
Yeah.
And so, and this gets even weirder, because, okay, so this Houston guy, he's just crazy and, everything. All of a sudden, right after his son died, and I know people do this, but he got religion. And if you know this guy, he was into all kinds of stuff. My husband bought a car from him. We found a gun underneath the seat. He was kind of shady. So
Yeah.
so his son dies, and right after that, this Houston guy starts drinking. He's got God. He's got this and that, and all, and that lasted for about a year. But so there's that story too, but a lot of people don't know it. And I never really said a lot about it, because you don't want to go around. Well, I was actually scared to say it when Houston was alive. I think he's dead now, but I wasn't going to say anything about it. But my mom and I discussed it some, and she said, his wife she told me, she thinks he killed our son because he was so upset that his son was on drugs, and he was just really hard on him. So she ended up divorcing him, his wife. But so that's another odd thing. It just seems like there was a lot of crime and stuff going on up there now that I think about it.
Yeah, it could be a breeding ground. I mean, really, like a cursed area, like your son said.
That's what I was just about to say. I was just about to say, I wonder if it's like the town was like cursed or something, because that old Walmart, the first Walmart they had up there, because they had a small Walmart, and then they moved it to a big super center on the other side of town. But back in the 90s, very early 2000s, there was a Walmart there that I think was built on an old Indian burial ground.
See,
So
that could be a possibility too, because like all this stuff is happening up there, and if what I remember from my notes, wasn't this college built off a little bit of ways off away from the town, up north of it, like off in a remote area?
Yeah, it was kind of away from the town area there, and more of the wooded, what was, I guess then back in the early 1800s, just forest.
Mm-hmm.
What's weird is,
and we're not too far. That's not too horribly far from. There's a road called Wayne's Trace that I grew up not too far from. That was where General Anthony Wayne went through 1790, I think it was, and there was actually some wars with the Indian tribes in this area.
Yeah.
So they may have cursed a lot of the land. Now, I don't know about Oxford's history as far as that goes. I would need to do a lot more research into that. But if it's a cursed area, it could have something to do with that, possibly.
well, and wasn't there the Talawanda Indians? Because our school was named Talawanda. That was after the
Yeah, and that was, I think, the Talawanda and maybe the Shawnee tribes lived there.
Though it ties into this Walmart, it's kind of weird because I don't know if you listened to my first interview with John talking about my sister in this haunted house she lived in.
It was right at Caddy Corner to where it was.
Yeah, it was on the same land as that Walmart. Eventually, they tore the house down, and then they built a Walmart there. And her house was just creepy and really haunted. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they said that the Walmart was haunted too. They said they had all kinds of issues with the electric doors, like, the automatic doors would do weird stuff, and they just said that some odd stuff was happening there too. So
Cursed areas like that would because like hauntings, everybody thinks hauntings are all the same, but they aren't. There's a lot of them, like down in the South, like in Louisiana, that they have the kind of hauntings that make you nauseous or your nose bleed and stuff like that. Like, you're not seeing ghosts, you're feeling a nauseous feeling and getting really, really sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that, especially in New Orleans and stuff.
Yeah, especially in New Orleans. It has a lot to do with like the atmosphere. So like when you're in an area that's a cursed area, you start feeling nauseous and start having, issues like that. So it could influence you to the point where, hey, you never know, maybe these guys said, I'm gonna kill somebody, and that was it. I mean, you never
Evil.
know. Yeah.
Evil negative energy or evil spirits kind of took them over, maybe.
I don't know,
And they were already dealing with inner demons, and it kind of fed into that, and those darker aspects of their personality maybe just got out of control.
Right.
You never know.
Well, and like Houston, I know he was kind of crazy, but I never thought that he'd actually kill his son. But if I look at it, I do think that there was something odd about that whole thing. And it did happen during that break. So But they never really looked at it as a murder because his son was on drugs so bad. They just figured he killed himself. But
Yeah, but we've already covered the police officers there, so
Yeah.
we know what's going on with that. Like, these guys are like, oh, screw it.
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
And then, there's just a lot up there now that and I never really put that together until just recently. I mean, I just figured me being a little older and it being a college town, there's a lot that goes on. Now, I worked on Western Campus a lot, though. When I first started there, I worked over in a building called Hoyt Hall, and I loved it, but it still always was creepy. Like, it wasn't a building that you'd want to stay in, by yourself after everybody left the office. It was always creepy.
yeah. That's a
And it
sign.
was right by Peabody Hall, which was the one that's supposed to be so haunted,
But that's a sign right there. When you're in a building where you don't want to be alone, something's telling you get out. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a spooky voice. You know what I mean? It could be a feeling going, "Hey, you don't."
Just like a feeling that you need to get the hell out of there now.
Yeah, so I used to, like, sometimes I would be the last one out of that building and I didn't like it, and I always felt like it was kind of back in the woods. But then another thing that ties into that, like, right as you go out of the driveway out of there, there's that musical place called Presser Hall, the music department. And then I heard that was haunted. I couldn't find any stories on that either, but a lot of people on campus said, yeah, Presser Hall is terrible. It's haunted. You don't want to work there. So, and it's an older building. But it seems like a lot of it's on Western. But then, like I said, Shriver isn't. It's right across the street from Western. And when I started working there, I never thought Shriver was haunted. But after I worked there a little bit, I did. I didn't like I said, I didn't like being there alone. And it just had a vibe to it. But yeah, so.
Maybe I need to do some more research into the history of the area prior to when the university was founded.
Yeah.
Like, when the Indian tribes were in there, and see if there were wars between the Indian tribes and maybe there were wars between the incoming settlers and the Indian tribes. That may have led to, if Oxford is indeed a cursed area, that may have led to it being such.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they're always in the news too, because they're in the news right now, don't you? Because the student leaving the bar, and then the police officer decked him 3 times with his fist, and so it seems like they're always in the news about something with the students, but
and they're always trying to cover it up.
Yeah. That's Ohio for you, though. I mean,
Right.
like, Ohio, they've got a standard. Everybody has the Ohio voting thing going on there, so they have to do that all over the state. It seems like they don't want people to know all the bad stuff happening in Ohio for some reason, or Iowa. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up, didn't I?
What'd you say, Iowa or Ohio?
Yeah, I mixed Ohio with Iowa.
Well, Ohio's
I don't know why I did that.
Going on too.
Yeah, Ohio is actually a pretty cool state. Whenever freaking I went through there, man. Me and my buddy Noble, I used to drive with him when he was a truck driver, and he'd always want me to go up into that area when we were heading towards West Virginia.
Yeah.
So he didn't like.
Okay, you were down on the southeast side there.
Yeah.
Going into West Virginia. Yeah, we're over in the north or the southwest corner of it.
Yeah.
I tell you what, that area. You don't want to be in a semi-truck driving down that area. That's some strange highway.
Yeah.
That really is.
Now, I was watching a story about Hocking Hills not too long ago, and I've been there, and that place is creepy. I went there with my husband, and it's Hocking Hills. Where's that at, Austin? I always forget.
Hocking, I think it's in Akron. I believe, but I wouldn't quote me on that.
You go off into the woods into these cabins, and it's like desolate. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like got hiking trails and cabins you can rent for a weekend or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a getaway. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
And I'm not scared because I'm a country girl, so we go. Me and my husband go up there, and I'm like, I don't know, because it was out there. It was scary. So you're in this cabin, and there's nobody around, and we were out, just having a little wine, sitting out on this deck area, and everything you hear in frogs, and you hear all the night stuff, and it's noisy because it was in the summertime or early spring, and just all kinds of noise, and all of a sudden, it just got quiet, like nothing. All of a sudden, and I told my husband, I said, what is going on? I said, it's real creepy. And it was like that probably for maybe 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden the frogs and stuff started back again. But I told him, I said, that just creeped me out. So anyway, last week I was watching some scary stuff. I mean, it was like Terror in the Woods or something. And usually that's about Bigfoot. And they had a story about Hocking Hills. And what caught me was these people, there was a group of them that a lot of times groups go up there and have, camp out or just stay in the cabins because they're expensive. So several people will go. And this girl was celebrating her birthday and all of her friends. And I think her mom was with them. And they heard something out in the woods in the middle of the night. There was one of the guys was still up. Everybody else was asleep. And he came running in. He thought somebody was playing games with him, but no, everybody was asleep. And he woke them all up. They went out there. And they swear it was like they saw this Bigfoot out there in Hocking Hills. and then it like ran off, and they couldn't go back to sleep. So the next day, him and his friends went into the woods, and they saw this footprint. And they did have a picture of it. And this guy had a size 12 shoe. And he put his shoe next to it, and it was twice that size. And you could see it. It was an actual cell phone picture.
It's possible. It's possible there could be a undiscovered species of primate, but
right.
I don't rule it out at all. It's just how you think by now they would have captured one, or
I would think
that's one of the things that's always puzzled me about it.
And what got me about it, though, is the guy that was sitting out there, everybody else had went to bed, he was sitting out there. And he said, I was sitting there listening to the night sounds and all the frogs and stuff, so just like my husband and I were doing. And he said, everything stopped. And he said, that scared me. And he said, then he heard the rustling and all that stuff. Now, my husband and I didn't hear nothing like that, but it was weird, and I just remember that, and I know what he's talking about. So I don't know what's out there.
Well, see, in the woods, especially if you've run in the woods, like I grew up in the woods, and like when you're in the woods and everything stops, there's no noise and stuff. There's usually something passing through that those animals don't want knowing they're there. You know what I mean? Predators. So. That's the one thing I've always been watchful for whenever I'm in the woods. Like, you gotta listen to the sounds. When the sounds stop, you need to be aware. You need to freaking know something's wrong. So
yeah, and I grew up in the country too, and I used to ride horses, so I'm very aware of that, because you don't want to be riding a horse. If something's going off, they can throw you. They'll get scared or spooked. So yeah, and that's why when I was at Hocking Hills, I was like, oh. It just really got me when everything just stopped like that. And that was exactly what this kid, he was a younger guy, what he said. He said, yeah, I'm just sitting out there having a beer, and all of a sudden, and he said, it's the spookiest, weirdest thing,
See, now you're getting me scared.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a hard time sleeping now because of that.
You get scared easy, Roger.
I wish. I'm wondering how Bob Dub is being. She's been real quiet, and now we're talking about.
I don't know if she's still there.
Like they call.
Yeah, we're talking.
They call them.
Was that stuff she's really interested in?
I don't know.
know.
Oh.
She probably mute.
In and out. Oh,
She said she was here a second ago, but
okay.
it was.
I don't see her. Is that little green lady? I don't see it on. But
Yeah, her microphone's still off. It says.
yeah.
She came in earlier and said she's still here, but
Okay.
it was like. But yeah.
So another thing I don't know if you want to discuss it. It's kind of off topic a little, but it's not a lot. But since Austin's here, I might discuss it. Is the slider phenomena. I know when I told you about it, Roger, that you had never heard about it. And I really hadn't until I experienced it with my daughter. Like when she would get upset, I think we first noticed it. Was it when who was driving the car? Was it her or you? You were doing your hours? You were driving?
Oh, I was back when I had like my temps and I had to do my hours or whatever.
So you were driving, right? I think you were driving.
I think so. Yeah.
So when she would get like upset, maybe with a boyfriend, or she'd get maybe tense or nervous, it would happen. So anyway, Austin's driving a car and we're going around this corner and there's this big light on the barn, on the side of this barn. And we go around a corner and Chantel was like saying something about Austin was driving too fast or she was scared or something. And then we go around a corner and this big light just went out. And I was like, well, maybe it's an automatic light or something. But back then, we didn't have as much of them, did we, Austin, out there? I think it was just a security light. But it didn't come back on, and it was really dark. So there was that. Or like in her room, if she'd get mad at her boyfriends, the light bulbs would just like go out. It just like pop, kind of.
I think we had one explode.
Yeah. And then, we were walking down the street. We went to get ice cream somewhere, and it was getting dark, and we were walking down the street. And this has really made me think she had it because it's the street light phenomena. And if you read up on it, a lot of people talk about how they take street lights out. So
yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, so we were walking under the street light, and it kind of popped, didn't it, Austin? And
yeah.
I know street lights get old, and they're like any other light bulb. It could just be a coincidence. But she was upset, about one of her boyfriends that night.
Those teenage girls, they always are.
Yeah, and it's that high teenage energy. It's that energy,
It could be related to like the poltergeist phenomenon, where you got a lot of pent up energy, mental and emotional energy, and it has to go somewhere. And of course, it's tied into, it's intertwined with physical reality.
Yeah.
So it can have major effects on it.
See, I didn't recognize it with the terms that you guys were saying with slider, but then I have heard stories of that. I never realized that was what the term was because I've heard of people knocking power or lights out when you're walking down the road.
Right.
I've heard of refrigerators getting knocked out because somebody was in the kitchen and it would knock the refrigerators out.
Computers.
Yeah.
This was weird too. Again, she was kind of high energy. It didn't happen as much once she got past puberty and she was, in college. But she was moving out of an apartment and I was helping her. Her dad and I were helping her. And I was in her room and she had one of those, stereo systems with the 5 CD changers and stuff. And it was unplugged. We were getting ready. We were going to take it on out to the car. And so her and I were sitting on a bed. She was kind of getting stressed. You know how moving does. It stresses you out. So and she's kind of getting stressed. And this stereo came on. And it was playing a CD. And I was like, Chantal, I thought you said it was unplugged. And she's like, it is. And it was playing. And I don't know. It was just this energy she has of something. I mean, and she's one that kind of blocks it. I think if she,
when you block it, it's like you create a dam,
Yeah,
and that energy has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
right. But if she was open to it, I don't know if she'd be a full-on psychic or what. But she's very, she's very high energy or something. She's got a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, but
I tell you,
it kind of scares her. So
I'll tell you what. It's like at 1 hour and 15 minutes. So why don't we make the next episode just about that, so we can talk about it and we can really get into it, because like I know we were planning on doing that and having it set up, because
it's a good point to start from the next in the next time around.
We kind of give everybody an idea. Like, this actually leads into the next good topic right there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We started having the conversation, and we'll do the next one next week about that with your daughter and everything, because I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, and there was also a professor I talked to about it, which, you know, I was kind of surprised he was very open to it, because I had never heard of it until I never ever thought about it, and I looked it up and I was like, well, this kind of seems to fit what's going on.
You remember that show that was on TV back in the 90s called Sliders?
Yeah, see, that's what I
know you.
That's
what she was.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that show was kind of about that phenomenon.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. And
that show was about that stuff.
I was thinking about it whenever you were saying that with Sliders, because it's kind of about it. You slip in and out of freaking let's do it at another time.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize it was getting that time. So.
Well, and my phone battery's only like at 8%, so.
I'm glad that.
So yeah, it's getting ready to die on me.
I'm glad that you does that though, because I'll be I'll be on a computer or my phone, and it's like all of a sudden, if I get real upset, everything goes haywire.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I'm really like her, but it seems like we all kind of have that energy. I've seen other people do it too, and they'll be like, "What is going on?" And the madder they get, the worse it gets. So yeah.
Yeah, I've done that a little bit too. So.
If you guys want, we can stop it here and we can start back up next week. And like I said, I'll put the description in the video for you the way you wanted it, with the college and then the state both in the introduction with your episode.
Okay.
So that it'll be all that. And I'll check with you and see if you like how I set it up, because we can do the college and then Ohio, to where people know it's at the college and then at Ohio.
Yeah. And dude, Austin, did you know there's the second oldest university in Ohio? I didn't know that. I thought
Miami?
Yeah, Ohio University.
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I asked Alexa. I was like, you know, how old is Miami University? And she said it is the second oldest university in Ohio, and I didn't know that. That's kind of
knew it was old, but I didn't know it was the second oldest.
I didn't either.
That's
so that's
else.
a fact.
Friend of mine, Mark, he's over in England. He mentioned something else too. He's like, it's strange that your guys' college is still referring to the girls' school as a university, because they used to do that a long time ago with these schools. They would classify them as universities for like girls' schools, girls' universities.
Oh,
and
okay.
He pointed that out to me too. So I think that's kind of unusual as well. You know what I mean? Because not too many girls' schools do that these days. They don't call them universities and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's kind of an older term.
Yeah. So
at least in England.
You know, it goes back.
You know what I've noticed, and I don't know if it's like this in a lot of towns, but Miami University and Oxford has basically renamed everything in that town.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so hard to go back in history and figure out what's going on, because they changed the names of everything.
Well, they're destroying their history.
I think
I don't
after
know.
I think after we're done with this, we're gonna find out there's a reason why they're destroying it. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely something there, and I don't think anybody's really gonna know what the full story is behind it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
why do you rename the names of buildings that are already there? You know, they just rename buildings.
Old stories and old folklore, man. You know.
Yep.
You want to get rid of those old stories and those old folklores, you change the name. Change.
Well, you know what?
Damage control.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's interesting? There was well, we can wrap it up after this, but there was a president there. His name was President Schreiber, Philip Schreiber. Actually, they named Schreiber Center after him. And he had this thing on the website at Miami. It was called Mysteries and Ghost Stories. And he was really into ghost stories, and he would like meet with the students and they'd tell ghost stories and stuff. Well, I was looking for that the other day because I was going to share it with you, Roger, and I can't find it anymore. So I think the new president has decided that he just doesn't want it on the Miami University website and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just makes him uncomfortable, or I don't know, but it's been there forever and now it's gone.
They wanna clear it up, get rid of it.
But all he had on there was a few, you know, like the light, and he had Fisher Hall, of course, and Ron Taman, and Reed Hall, I think, was on there. Just a few things. It wasn't like it was a big bunch of stuff, you know. So yeah.
So you're gonna end it for us?
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, so we'll end this, and next time I'll kind of talk about the slider phenomena, and that will lead into that. Yeah. So
It was good. It's good talking to you, Roger Hansen, for the first time.
Yeah, it's great talking
wanna
to
do
you
this-
too, man.
well, and thanks.
Yeah, I want to do this again real soon, and
Well, we're doing this every week, right, Summer?
Yeah, if you want. I don't know if I can do it on Saturday, but I can discuss with you when I can do it, because I think
Yeah, we
next-
can schedule around.
yeah, next
yeah.
Saturday I might not be able to do it, so maybe
Yeah.
I might be able to join in if you guys do it Sunday, maybe.
That'd be cool. We
But
can
we'll
run
see.
We can run it by each other and see and stuff like that.
Okay.
Do it.
Yeah, if that's okay, yeah, we can kind of just take it as it comes, and it'll work.
Yeah, that'd work out.
And
Been good talking to you guys. My phone's on 3%, so I gotta go.
Okay, well, thanks.
Guys,
Take it easy.
thanks, guys. Thank you so much. It was
Thank
an
you.
awesome-
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you, Bob Dub. Take
Yeah,
it easy.
Awesome. So glad you got here.
And so, how do you pronounce your name? What do you call yourself? Bob Dub? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed it, and that you felt free to comment. I didn't know if you were like in and out or what, but
I was just busy playing with the AI image generator and listening to you, and absolutely fascinated with what you were saying. Gosh,
Really,
what a
that's
place
okay.
to live.
Okay, well, it's been great.
Well,
and, thank
Good talking to all you guys. Take it easy.
You too.
Okay.
Take it easy.
Till next time.
And later.
See you guys.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.